Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Friday Furtado Show, where I, Coach Furtado, Justin Furtado, share my learnings, my experience, and my overall week with y'all as a young leader and young coach. So let's dive right in. And I'm talking about behavioral reinforcement, right? And I'm specifically talking about youth players, whether it's you're at an after school club like Boys and Girls Club, or you're coaching a youth sports team, right? You have a set of behaviors or expectations that you lay out, right? And this is not going to be an episode about that, but you got to make sure that you have some expectations laid out so the youth know what is accepted and what is not. Because if there's no clarity around that, what I'm going to talk about doesn't even matter whatsoever, right? So you have to have clarity on that before, and that's something that I have struggled with. And I'm still learning as a young coach, is really setting out clear. They got to be crystal clear. You can do this, you cannot do that, right? And it may be different, right, at Boys and Girls Club versus school or your sports team and at home. So you really have to make it clear. When you are here in this space for the hour and a half, 4 hours, whenever it is, these are the expectations. Boom. All right, let's go into it. So, right, we don't need to touch on the players that are the 100%, the ones that are always going above and beyond, or the kids at the club and that are just they're great kids in there. That you could tell that they're getting the proper love, attention, and parenting at home, right? Those ones are the easy ones. Those, even though those are the fun ones, right? Those may be our favorites. That's not why we coach. That's not why we work with kids. We work with kids to transform and change the lives of those who really need us. And I think that's something that's why I got into working at the Boys and Girls Club. I first got into working with kids before I got into coaching kids for sports. And it's about transforming those lives. So again, I think number one is you have to know what's in your expectation list, right? So I will go through and I will talk about what I am experiencing right now as a basketball coach and what I see. I just lost a little bit of train of my thought, but getting back on track at basketball practice, when they're working on different skills, right? Because there's skills and then there's kind of the interpersonal skills. So we'll go through skills first, right? And making sure that you are praising them when they do something right, so they know, right? So if they do a layup off the correct foot, good job, right? And especially in a game, good job, I saw that, right? That kind of reinforces, okay, I did it right. If I do this right, then I'm gonna get a good job, right? And then on the flip side, right, it's like when they're, a lot of times, what we are challenged with is like they're dribbling the basketball when coach is talking. I'm like, nope, that's not okay, right? And then, especially if you see a student that's really challenged by it, some students are just like more active, right? You be like, you find them and you say, good job, Jimmy, for holding the ball while I was talking, right? So just kind of constantly giving them that reinforcement, and then shout praise, whisper criticism, because and I think this is the one thing I've really struggled with as a young leader. It's easy to yell. It's easy to yell, but it's ineffective. It's incredibly ineffective. And I still do this. I did it yesterday. So it's not like I'm sitting here and saying like, oh, I'm perfect at it. But it's something I need to work on. And I know that it's not helpful, right? Like sometimes, sure, there are probably some warranted situations where you need to raise and use your coach voice or your youth development voice, whatever. You have to be that authority figure and kind of have that voice, right? But there's a difference between that voice and always using it and kind of saving it, right? Because the more you yell, the less it means to the kids. So for those that are kind of not following directions, not following the culture that y'all have set and the clear expectations y'all have set, right, you got to have one-on-one conversations. And I think this is something where it can be really challenging. You're super busy. You may not always have time to have those one-on-one conversations, right? And sometimes it's giving them a look. But I really found that it's significantly more impactful when you ask them about it, right? Instead of being like, why did you do that? Don't do that, right? They kind of learn, right? Some of them will learn more than others, but you have to get them to have their own kind of critical thinking and buy into those expectations. Otherwise, it's Justin's rules and Justin's culture, not our culture, right? It has to be our culture. right? So it's like, we'll give a situation where we have a player shooting at water break when they're not supposed to be shooting. So I can come up to them and be like, don't do that. Or I can ask them, why are you shooting, right? And I actually did that yesterday for the first time. Like, instead of like, and they didn't have any reason. They didn't even think about it, right? It's just a habit. They're not used to being asked questions. They're used to being told directions. And I think as we're developing young leaders, we have to ask them questions. We have to give them more power. We have to give them those critical thinking skills and challenge them a little bit. Oh, I don't know. Or why don't you know? Why, and it's probably just a habit that they're in, right? And we're changing it, and it's not consistent, but they don't have the brain capacity to really like critically think about that. So that is really important to whisper criticism, aka have conversations with them. Don't just yell. Yelling is so lazy, and I have done it so many times, and I know you probably have too. It's just like it seems more effective in the moment when we're so busy. You're like, I don't want to have a one-on-one conversation, and shoot, you might be understaffed, and you might not even have the opportunity to. And sometimes maybe it's bringing a kid here and just being like, you still have your eyes on the room, right? But you have to have those conversations, and maybe it's 1 or 2 minutes before they go home, right? If it's an after school club, or before they go home after practice, just having those, maybe jotting those notes down. I actually saw another coach jotting notes down while he was watching a scrimmage. I'm like, dang, man, that's genius, because I always forget what I'm going to say. So writing those notes down, maybe that'll be helpful for me too. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Send me your thoughts on some of the I don't want to call them problem children, but like, children that have kids that have difficulty with behavior and following instructions, and there's a lot of different mental health issues and ADHD and things that I don't really know too much about. I've been working with kids for long enough where I can kind of tell when a kid is a little bit more rambunctious or not. But I love to just talk about it, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm going to have all the answers, but sometimes just having those conversations about some of those more difficult and challenging students or players can really make a big difference. So I want to be a resource, right? Like I'm a young leader, I'm a young coach just like you. So we're in this together. We're on our way to kind of impact the world and change and transform the lives of youth. That way they can be young leaders as well. So with that, I also I post about podcasts. I'm bridging impact, passing wisdom from generation to generation. If you're interested, I interview experienced leaders. So go check that out. And I appreciate you all for listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Really, like, it means a lot to me. And if you share it on social media, it's how you grow, right? No one really listens to podcasts unless they see a friend share it. So appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful weekend. And I will be in your ears and eyes next week.